Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
So, first two questions for you. What is it like being here and being at the point where you're getting inducted into the Astronaut Hall of Fame?
Well, first of all, I'm just very deeply honored. There's probably no other event that would be so special to someone than to be recognized by their peers, and so humbled, but very honored.
And also, what inspired you when you started to get from when you were a child to this point today? What was the biggest inspiration?
I think it's a culmination of inspirations. First of all, I was fascinated when I was 8 or 9 by the night sky and the Milky Way. We were also starting to explore space. I saw Sputnik go over, Alan Shepard, John Young. My parents thought it was important. My dad had been a World War II veteran. This was about moving the nation forward, and great nations explore. I was also reading, so science fiction like Jules Verne and H.G. Wells, and when we finally had a TV, I was watching Flash Gordon. So you bring all those things together, and it was just exciting to me. It still is. For me, it was never about work. It was about a passion and a dream, and helping to serve our country as we move forward.
During your 5 missions, what sticks out? What memory do you keep with you?
Oh, 5 missions and 50 days. There's so many memories. I think what really sticks to me cumulative was the fact that, first of all, we worked in low Earth orbit. We performed research for researchers and engineers, scientists across this country that not only benefited us here on Earth, but moved us forward in exploration. So I was part of those research teams, and I felt a tremendous amount of pride in working with universities and companies to do that. But the other part of being there is looking out the window and looking at the Earth, seeing this magnificent planet. But I also spent a lot of time looking out the window too, because above the Earth's atmosphere, the Milky Way is not only brighter, but Carl Sagan was right. There are billions and billions of stars out there. And what it did was just compel me more about why we need to continue exploring.
This year marks the 50th anniversary of Women in Space. It's the 30th anniversary later in about 2 months of Sally Ride's first flight. This is the first class with 2 women, more women than men. Can you reflect a little bit on that and the role model that you serve as to girls now growing up and potentially looking at becoming astronauts? Well,
I'm very honored to be called a role model and somewhat humbled, but you have to remember my role models were men. So I was watching John Glenn and Alan Shepard and also the engineers that I was reading about, Max Vauget. And what I really am proud about is that our country decided that it was important to include women in the exploration of space. And number 2, what I tell young girls is that if you want to be first, if you want to move forward, don't just look for people that look like you. Have the courage, have the knowledge to move forward on your own. And I think that's important. So I feel a tremendous responsibility because I'm a woman, but I want to encourage both young men and young women to continue on their own and to break the molds and have the courage to do it.
Right, one more question.
Bonnie, when you were on the mission with your total of 8 people, I have to ask, and I'll play off Robert's question here, did you at the time consider yourself a role model, or is it something you kind of grew into with your flights in the shuttle?
Oh, I don't think I've ever grown into being a role model. I never thought of myself as being unique on the flight. Remember, I was looking out of my 2 eyes at 7 men that were my colleagues and my crew members. I grew up with 2 younger brothers and a very supportive father. So my first image was, I'm just part of the crew. It was really the audience that would continue to point out the difference. And so we would joke among ourselves about being Snow White and the 7 Dwarfs, but I wasn't Snow White, it was the CDR because he had white hair. And so, it was really the people that were looking at it. I was just very fortunate to be with 5 Americans, 2 Germans, and a Dutchman on a tremendously interesting flight.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
First question for you. This is a momentous day for you. You're getting You know, you've had lots of big space flights, but now you're getting inducted with a lot of other astronauts who have been in the Astronaut Hall of Fame. What is that like at this point?
Well, it is a very big day for me personally. It's quite overwhelming. I never imagined as a small kid growing up wanting to fly that I'd ever be in this position to be. First of all, I was very lucky to have the shuttle missions that I had, and today to be inducted into Hall of Fame is just beyond belief.
And you just toured Atlantis and looked around. What was it like seeing all of the other astronauts in there with you? You know, 20 some other astronauts, Buzz Aldrin, all you know. Well,
I'll be honest with you, I've seen enough astronauts, but to see Atlantis is unbelievable. You guys, I don't know if you've been in there and seen the complex so far, but Atlantis, that's going to be the most unbelievable exhibit of the shuttle in the world. It's going to be in flight, basically in orbit, and then the payload bay doors will be open. You'll be able to see into the payload bay. It's tremendous, and I volunteer to be back to do a walkthrough and check it out, make sure it's working okay before we let the public see it. But it's going to be beautiful.
Are you going to come here as a tourist to see it?
I'm going to come back for sure. Whether I'm a tourist or not, I hope I get a little bit more access than the tourists.
But with family and bringing
oh yes, I am very much so. It's going to be the best exhibit to see a vehicle in its real environment, so to speak, anywhere in the world.
We'll take care of you, Kurt.
Thank you.
On that next visit.
Thank you very much.
Looking forward to human space flight again. Are you excited about the horizons for NASA and commercial space?
Well, I'll be perfectly honest with you. I'm not real excited where NASA is right now. We don't have a vehicle that can take us to orbit. We had a vehicle that was going to be able to take us to orbit, but we don't have it now because the administration decides that, I guess, space is not that important to them. I think that's the wrong answer. So I'm looking forward to the next time we have a vehicle that American can get in, an American vehicle, and go to orbit and visit our International Space Station that we built and go further. So I hope we get back on track.
As you may have seen last night when you were going through the Astronaut Hall of Fame, part of it is displaying artifacts from each astronaut's career. Have you given any thought to what you might be loaning to represent yourself in the hall?
Well, I'm trying to get over the initial shock of being in the hall, so to speak, but I don't know. I'll have to go back and take a look at that. That'll be an interesting problem to have, so I'll go back and take a look and see what I have.
Over your missions, what do you remember the most? I mean, what stands out?
Well, I was so happy to have my first mission back in 1992, and you never know if you're going to have a second one. And then I got my second one, and I got my third one, and my fourth one. And then, as you all know, I had my infamous mission, STS-95, with John Glenn on board. And the joke is John on your mission or are you on his mission? So I think I was the commander of that flight, but that'll be definitely in my memories for a long time, a really great flight. But I tell you what, my last flight was a Hubble servicing mission, and to be a part of the Hubble Space Telescope team is truly, I really value that. That thing is such a magnificent machine. It's a time machine. It's able to look back in time so far that it's unbelievable, and it rewrites the physics books all the time as it learns more and more. But I'm very proud of all my missions. But the Hubble and the Senator Glenn mission was very good.
Any more questions?
Well,
one more then? You got it, Rob.
Working off what you just mentioned about John Glenn, you're entering the hall where he was already a Hall of Fame member when he flew with you. What does it mean to be in the same hall with the likes of John Glenn, Neil Armstrong, Sally Ride, and others, and people that you've worked with in the past?
Well, as I mentioned, I'm very honored, and it's a dream that I never imagined would ever come true. As you know, we have a number of the original 7 astronauts here today, and you know, it takes a whole team to make this program work, to make the space program work, and I'm glad to be part of that team. I'm a small cog, and those guys were all my heroes. And John Glenn, I remember as a little kid when they landed on the moon, my dad and I took photographs with a Polaroid camera of the television screen. I still have those photos at home, and I remember those early flights, and those guys are here today, and to be a part or be in a group associated with them I'm very proud.
Thank you so so much. What do you feel like getting here where you're being inducted into the Astronaut Hall of Fame?
Well, honestly, it's not about me, seriously. And if I thought that way, I would probably be setting too high of a standard for myself. So I'm here, I believe, as a person to communicate the message of the greatness of space exploration, and for young people, the importance of choosing careers in math, science, and engineering. You can be an astronaut someday if you work hard enough, if you choose the right careers. But if you decide you don't want to be an astronaut, there's career fields all throughout the space program. In fact, almost any field that you could study touches the space program somehow. Even if you want to study law or medicine or even art or history, all of this touches the space program. So I think we can have a better awareness throughout the country of what space does for us in general as the people on the planet.
One question about your background. This is going to the Syracuse TV stations. How much did growing up in Elmira, Syracuse, help you and get you to where you are today?
Yes, well, growing up in upstate New York, I believe, was a big factor in the direction that I went. Elmira, New York is the home of the National Soaring Museum. So when I was a child at summer camp, 7 weeks every summer of camp, watching the gliders soar, I never had a chance to fly until I was an adult, but just knowing that that opportunity was there and watching the glider soar in the clouds, it was just something I wanted to do. And my dad took the family to the airport to watch airplanes take off and land. That's always, it's true, but it's such a great story. You can do simple things like that. My mom took us to the library and dropped us off for the afternoon, and I found books on flying. And that's really the seeds that were set. I didn't have some big expensive program that I was involved in. I just learned to love flying through simple everyday life.
And then my last question here, tell us a little bit about the history of what you're wearing here, some significance to that.
Well, the gold pin that I'm wearing is a logo that was designed by the original Mercury 7 astronauts. They wanted a logo, I don't remember what year, but back in the early days. And the way that the tradition has evolved is when you are hired as an astronaut, you are presented with a silver pin when you graduate from your astronaut candidate training. After you fly your first mission, you're presented with a gold pin that flew in space. So we all wear the Mercury 7 insignia, which I think is very well designed. It's a beautiful insignia.
And the jacket you're wearing?
The jacket that I'm wearing has not been worn in at least 15 years, but I will say that about 20 years ago I wore this to my astronaut interview, and it's been hanging in my closet. I don't want to get rid of it. It has a very special significance to it. It's as close to NASA blue as I could find at the time, and pulled it out of the closet for the induction ceremony.
You say it's not about you, but you're the first woman commander and pilot. What does that mean to be a role model to a lot of young girls want to pursue a career in space?
Well, astronauts are role models, whether we like it or not. We're here and we are role models, and we can go out and spread the message, or some astronauts are more introverted than others, and it is a little bit tough to go out and do the public speaking thing. But I think if you have a lot of passion about what you believe in, it becomes easier. So I try to take that passion that I have for the space program, as well as for engineering and science in general, and try to spread that to people. I talk about young people because they have yet to choose their careers, but this is for the adult population regardless of your age. I think all of us can learn more about what we do in space and why it's important to do that.
Talk to me about the return to flight back in 2005. Was there a lot of pressure? Was it an intense time? Or?
Well, in 2003, when we lost Columbia, my crew was 5 weeks from launch. So we hung together as a crew. Mostly we helped support the families, we helped support the accident investigation. But some of the crew members were changed, but eventually in 2.5 years we flew. It was probably the most difficult time of my life as far as my professional life. There was very difficult decisions to make. At times emotions ran high. Obviously we lost 7 of our friends, and that was just, you don't get over that. But I was committed to flying, and I remember telling my training manager, if it takes 10 years, I'm going to fly this mission. I am not giving up. But we're going to wait until we have fixed everything on the shuttle that needs to be fixed, so we are flying with a spacecraft that we feel very, very confident in. So it took a while to do that, and I think it pulled us all together in the end and made us a better, stronger team.
Eileen, you mentioned being committed to fly. There's some people out there right now that might be a little discouraged given the current state of the U.S. space program. As a role model, what would you say to the young men and women out there who are looking to become future astronauts for America?
Okay, I would say if you're interested in being an astronaut, do not be discouraged. This is a good time, especially if you're in college. There is a program, it's just not as visible right now. In fact, at this point in time, NASA is getting ready to announce a new class. Now, the current astronauts fly on the space station because they launch out of Russia. We don't hear as much about them, but there is really two programs coming up. One of them is to low Earth orbit, which is more private enterprise, flying our astronauts to and from the space station. The other side of human spaceflight is deep space, and that's the Space Launch System that is being designed by NASA now. They're building the Orion capsule where the astronauts will live. This is going to take us deep space, whether it's the asteroids, back to the moon, onto Mars. It will have the capability to go any of those places. So it's a very exciting time. I would major in geology if I was in college now and I wanted to be an astronaut, because field experience, as well as engineering, and being the kind of person that can tinker with things and fix things, those are going to be important skills for future astronauts. Anybody else?
At the hall last night, you may have seen that there are exhibits devoted to each of the members. How do you imagine your own exhibit coming together? What do you hope is highlighted?
Okay, I'm going to take a look at that. Unfortunately, because of the nature of last night, I didn't get a chance to really get a closer look at those, but from the past, I do remember that astronauts have donated things from their professional life, flown items, and anything that might be of interest to the public. So I do have quite a collection that is spread out all over the place because I'm trying to keep it safe. I don't want the whole thing to burn up in a wildfire somewhere. So I have spread it out, but I have yet to really catalog everything I have. Shuttle astronauts cannot keep any flown item that actually belongs to the shuttle program. So I have my clothes, my personal things, and I have quite a large collection of shuttle engineering drawings, training manuals, backup flight data file that did not fly in space. I saved all of it. And I can't even tell you how much I have because it's quite a bit, but someday I will donate all of this, and I think it really belongs to the American people, but because they were the missions that I flew, I'd like there to be kind of an individual or maybe a personal touch to them.
Maybe the suit.
Well, the suit, oh, this suit, oh yeah, I'll have to figure out what I'm not going to donate it. I almost took it to Goodwill, and it's a nice suit, I would, but just because it has a special meaning, I'm not going to donate it.